crash echoed through the quiet countryside like a scream tearing open the sky. The kind of sound that makes your heart drop even before your mind understands what happened. Smoke curled upward, glittering shards of glass scattered across the asphalt like fallen stars. And in the middle of all of it lay a woman who looked too fragile, too broken, too out of place in such a violent scene. And that was the moment when single father Logan Carter slammed on his brakes and ran toward her, unaware that rescuing this stranger would end up changing both their lives in ways neither could have imagined. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and stories that remind us humanity still exists, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe, and tell us in the comments where in the world you're watching from. Logan wasn't a man who hesitated. Years of raising his son Ethan alone had taught him that fear solves nothing. He rushed toward the crumpled black Mercedes where the blonde woman lay half-conscious, stray with blood and dust, her expensive clothes torn by shattered glass. In that instant, she didn't look like someone who lived in mansions or whose net worth people whispered about. She just looked human, fragile, scared, and fading. As Logan slid his arms underneath her and lifted her, her head fell against his chest, her breath shallow, and her fingers twitched as if clinging to life itself. Behind him, Ethan stood frozen in the pickup truck, wide-eyed, but trusting his father completely, just as he always had. It was only after Logan carried her to safety, laying her gently in the backseat of his truck, that he noticed the quiet crest on her bracelet, a small V wrapped in diamonds. He had seen it once on a magazine cover while waiting for an oil change. Alexandra Vale, the elusive billionaire philanthropist who rarely appeared in public. But at that moment, the name meant nothing to him. To Logan, she wasn't a billionaire. She wasn't famous. She wasn't someone powerful or unreachable. She was just a woman bleeding in his arms. And he knew he had to get her help before her breathing grew weaker. The drive to the rural emergency station felt longer than it should have. Logan's knuckles widened as he gripped the steering wheel, glancing at Alexandra in the rearview mirror every few seconds. She drifted in and out of consciousness, her face pale, her lips trembling as she fought to stay awake. Ethan, small and brave, held her hand gently, whispering words only a child's heart could form. Simple, pure hopes for her to be okay. Logan's chest tightened at the sight. He had raised Ethan to care deeply, even when life had given them so little in return. When they finally arrived at the small clinic, Logan carried Alexandra inside, refusing to let anyone else touch her until a doctor assured him she was in good hands. Only then did he step back, heart pounding, sweat and dust covering his flannel shirt. As nurses worked quickly, Logan stood silently in the corner, overwhelmed by memories he had fought to bury. Memories of the day he couldn't save Ethan's mother after a similar crash. Memories that tore him apart even now. Helping Alexandra had felt like reliving that day, except this time he refused to let fate win. Hours passed. The sun dipped low. Ethan slept on a plastic chair, curled up in his father's jacket. Logan stayed awake, staring at the closed door behind which Alexandra fought to recover. And when the doctor finally came out and said she would live because of him, because he acted fast, Logan felt a quiet, heavy breath escape his chest. For the first time in years, he felt something close to relief. But he didn't wait to be thanked. He didn't wait for recognition. He didn't want to answer questions about who he was, why he was there, or how he had known what to do. Logan simply placed his jacket gently over Ethan, lifted his sleeping boy into his arms, and walked out into the cool night without a word, disappearing before Alexandra ever woke. When Alexandra Vale opened her eyes the next morning, her world felt different, blurry, heavy, but achingly real. She remembered the crash, the helplessness, the overwhelming terror. But through that fog, one thing remained clear. The face of the man who carried her. The strength in his arms. The warmth of a small hand holding hers. The voice of a child trying to comfort her. She asked the nurses for the man's name, but they had none. She asked security, the doctor, anyone she could find. Yet all she got was a description. Tall, rugged, wearing a faded flannel shirt and eyes filled with something deeper than fear, something like pain. For days, Alexandra thought about him. She had everything money could buy. Yet, she had spent her life surrounded by people who wanted something from her. Investors, journalists, distant relatives, employees who spoke to her like she was a brand, not a woman. But the man who saved her didn't stay for a reward. He didn't ask for fame or recognition. He disappeared like someone who had been hurt enough times to avoid being seen. Weeks later, moving slowly but determined, Alexandra hired investigators not out of vanity, but out of a feeling she couldn't shake, a feeling that she owed her life to someone who carried enormous grief behind his quiet strength. But small towns keep secrets well, and Logan Carter was a man who lived far from attention. His house stood miles away, deep in the countryside, where he worked odd jobs, raised his son, and lived quietly in the shadow of old wounds. It took time, patience, and a touch of fate. But eventually, Alexandra stood outside his wooden porch, her heart pounding harder than it ever had in a boardroom. When Logan opened the door and saw her standing there, healed, glowing with life again, he felt a wave of disbelief. He had saved her and walked away, thinking their worlds would never cross again. But now she was here, thanking him in a way words couldn't. She told him she remembered every second he carried her, every tremor in his voice, every moment his hands fought to keep her alive. Logan tried to shrug it off, saying anyone would have done the same. But she saw it in his eyes, the truth that he didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a man who had already failed someone once, as weeks turned to months. Alexandra kept returning not with grandeur but with simple kindness. She laughed with Ethan, helped repair the old fence, brought meals when Logan worked late, and slowly became a part of their quiet, imperfect world. She was powerful in the city, but here she was just a woman finding peace she never knew she needed. Logan, guarded and scarred, tried to keep his distance, but it was impossible not to see the sincerity in her heart. Life began to soften around them. Trust grew slowly like sunlight after a long winter. Ethan adored her. Logan found himself smiling again, even laughing, something he hadn't done in years. And Alexandra, who once lived her days buried under pressure and expectations, found meaning in places money could never reach. But if this story has touched your heart even a little, please take a moment to like the video, comment below, and share it with someone who needs hope today. Your support truly keeps stories like this alive. Before you go, tell us in the comments, should Alexandra and Logan's quiet bond grow into something more, or should their connection remain a beautiful reminder of fate's unexpected kindness? And in the very end, as the sun set behind the hills and a soft breeze carried the scent of pine through the air, Logan stood beside Alexandra on his porch, realizing that maybe, just maybe, saving her wasn't the miracle he gave her. Maybe the miracle was the way she was helping him heal the part of himself he thought was lost forever.